Schatzi. Kuckuck. Hallo. It will hold, it's good.
We are sanding. It's so much fun. Yes, we can.
That's the attitude, I like it. She's killing it.
Torture.
No, a lot of people complain about the maintenance if you have a lot of wood on a boat. But honestly, to me, that makes actually a real pretty and beautiful boat. I love that. I don't care how much work it is, at least for now.
Oh my god. What are you doing? Ella, Oh boy. Under my arm.
I'm taking a break.
I'm not. I'm working.
How's it going there?
Good.
Yeah, is it coming?
Yeah. Yeah, it's coming.
Good.
It's not bad at all.
I was trying to get the brown stuff off, and I don't know, really tedious work, painful. I said if I could hire one workout, that would be that.
Das geht voll in die Augen, ne?
Mhm.
Hast du eine Brille?
Ja. Hallo du. Getting ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. You're awesome. I just sanded the tiller down and it really came back super nice. Like almost like new. Now we'll go ahead and paint it. That's what I'm using. I like it. I think we have to do a couple of coats now. It always really blows my mind how well the Brightwork on a boat is coming back with just a little bit of elbow grease and attention to detail. Can you imagine that this wood must be about 50 years old, considering that the boat itself is already 47 years old? It's turned out really nice. Alright, we got a few of those little teak plugs that failed on the boat, and there's water seeping into the screw hole. So I'm trying to plug this today. I ordered some teak plugs. I think these are 1/2 inch diameter. And so what I'm trying to do now is to dry out the hole, clean it out properly, and then I figured instead of epoxy I use just normal wood glue, but water resistant. That way, you know, if it ever fails again, you can drill it open, kind of somehow dig it out of there and replace it properly. So that's a plan for today, replacing a few of those, and then I probably use some varnish remover, because we were busting our bumps here trying to sand everything down, and it worked pretty alright for the most part, but man, you can make it so much easier on yourself just by doing that and prepping with a varnish remover. Yep, so let's see how it goes. So before I go any further here, I'll probably dry it out with a heat gun. But first, let's get all the nastiness out of here. It's actually not too bad, to be honest. Rained a bit last night, so there's some debris in there and some wet and nasty, so I'll give it some heat and see if I can dry it out. You can tell by the smell that the wood is getting hot. I just don't want any moisture in there. Hot, hot, hot. That's good. I think it should be good enough. So by the smell you can tell it's really warming up nicely. Alright, now that I got that cleaned out and dried out, I'll use one of these plugs and make sure that it goes with the grain of the wood, and plenty of wood glue. Don't be shy with that now. Probably need a hammer. Mallet would be better, but I don't have one, so I use a hammer. You want to make sure that the glue gets into all the nooks and crannies here to have a watertight seal. Now we let it dry and then chisel it off. I mean the plug, the top of it. So this time around I'm trying to be a bit smarter and sharpen that a little bit. Give it some cone shape here at the edge, at the outer edge, leading edge that will go into the plug hole first. I won't run into the same problem, hopefully. Let's see, it's always a thing with boat projects. Unless you are a boat builder by trade or do anything related to that, like let's say being a carpenter or so, it's always a steep learning curve with everything. I mean, there's always YouTube University and there's no shortage of books either. Most boat projects are actually taking longer than expected for the most part. So now I rounded it a little bit, just a tad, and that should hopefully makes a difference. Let's see how that goes. There's another one on the side of the cockpit combing that failed. So I tried to clean that out a bit. There's some adhesive in there or something. I think somebody put silicone into it as a temporary fix. Which is fine, you just gotta get it out all because the wood glue won't hold on that. Torturing myself and the family trying to sand it all off, not knowing any better as always. And there's always a better way to do this. So now the idea would be to strip this headboard here with this varnish remover here. And I had some good success with that on other wood projects, like the cockpit combing. Had some spots where I couldn't sand it down, it was just too tedious, and using this at least as a prep work to get to your point where you want to be with the wood a little bit sooner, this helps a lot. So it gets the rough stuff off, and then you can fine sand it down, and the result is pretty satisfying actually. Yeah, I think it looks pretty alright. So it has been stripped and then sanded over, and it's about ready to be painted soon. Alright, now I got this elevated. I should have brought 2 gloves, but I have only 1. So let's lay that on thick. Now we let time work for us instead of busting our bumps trying to sand it down. Alright, let's see how well that worked. Let's start on this side. I might have to go here, at least a little time over. But most of it is coming off alright. Really thick varnish, you have to go twice, at least 2 applications. But that's still much better and easier than sanding it all down. When it comes to varnish removal, another good option would be a heat gun and a spatula. I haven't tried that yet, but I hear good things about it. The only thing is you have to be very careful that you don't burn the wood. Looks like snake skin. So it's a final result. After sanding it a little bit, I might go over this part with the machine one more time to get really smooth, but after that should be ready to be varnished again. Alright, let's hit that, what is that, spray hood combing or dodger combing or whatever you want to call that first, but I think I have to shake the product. It says shake it well, shake it like a Polaroid picture. Yeah. Wicked stuff. Good would be to wear PPE. This is nasty. Safety goggles and a mask. That should do it. So I say be generous with that stuff, put it on thick in order to get good results here. Already that it's working, it's coming loose. You can tell it works really great. Get so much of that stuff off just by scraping over. Makes it so much easier. Can also scrape backwards later on once you got most of it off, that you don't damage the wood too much. That's a good result. Looks pretty decent. Quite happy with it. So here's our little painting project unfolding. So finally we got everything that we have ordered. So we varnish in schooner. We tried 3 different varnishes. We tried a compass, schooner, and we tried original. So original we found was a little bit too soft, and the compass too hard, and the schooner seemed to have the nicest, darkest teak tint, and it looks really sweet and got a nice gloss to it. So that's the one we will go with. For the waterline we go with white pre-coat and then top lac Mediterranean white. And then we will have our blue gray pre-coat for the rest of the ship above the waterline, and we will go with a blue, Oxford blue. So that's the plan for now. I hope this will suffice and will be enough, because ordering stuff right now is a bit iffy. It takes a long time to get something. Alright, so this is a data sheet for schooner varnish by International, and we have decided to use this one just because we like it the best. We did the Tiller compass, and we did a few of the floorboards down here in the original varnish, and we found that was too soft and too much like honey. So now for the rest of the woodwork we will go with schooner. And we go here with bare wood basically because we're down to bare wood. We took all the varnish off. So the first coat will be applied with 10% thinner. I don't have the International thinner number 1, I just use a different one. And then 4 to 6 full coats of normal varnish until a satisfactory finish is achieved, and then sanding between those coats again with 320 to 400 grade paper, and remove all dust again, and then also do not apply too thickly. So now comes the fun part, varnishing. New brush, 10% thinner, schooner varnish. First coat. Not too thick. It's important before you use a brand new brush that you work it a little bit in your hands to make sure you pull all the loose hairs out of it. Because it would be a real shame after all the effort you've put into it so far if one little hair would end up under a newly varnished coat and ruin your entire project. Oh, son of a nutcracker. That hurts. I obviously used way more than I actually need. So I go and hit the combing or something else. We'll see. Because there's much more varnish. It doesn't really take all that much, to be honest. But the result looks really good. I like it. Found something else that I can varnish that is prepped enough. So here comes the first coat. Looks pretty decent for the first coat. You could either tape everything off before varnishing or simply wipe dripping varnish off with a wet towel, your preference. Again, make sure that your brush won't lose any hairs, and if it does, make sure you catch it. One of the most satisfying moments, in my opinion, in woodwork, when you're finally at a point where you can start varnishing. So all the sanding and prepping and everything. Looks like $1 million. Looks really good, I think. discovered when I opened the varnish here and poured it into my receptacle that you are supposed to use, which is in this case my paper cup here, I discovered that the varnish dried out. There was 2/3 full in the can, so you can see down there the skin. So there was a big chunk of skin floating around there, even though I shook it well, as you always want. So here's another good reason why you want to pour your varnish into an extra receptacle before you use it. That way you have a better idea about the quality, and also if you have a contaminated brush, which I don't, I use a brand new one now, you can actually contaminate the whole can, which would be unfortunate because it will end up in your workpiece. So this is now the third coat going on. And what I found personally being most important, learning as I'm doing, so to speak, is never apply varnish too thickly. You have to accept the fact that you have to run several coats, because if you apply too thickly you might have runners and then things get really nasty because it takes a while to get them out of your workpiece again. And so better would be if you apply it relatively thin and then do several coats and just be patient with it. I think the technical data sheet of schooner varnish by International says, what was it now, babe, 3 to 5 coats or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, so something like that. So anyhow, you gotta, go over it a couple of times. So what I like doing is I put a bit on and then I make sure that I wetten the surface pretty much evenly, as even as I can. And then I use at the end very light strokes like this to make sure that the varnish finds its proper flow and that there are no air bubbles in there, to have a really nice and glassy and clean finish. And at the very end I like to check the lower edges, like here on this hedge. Just run the brush carefully along that to catch any remaining drops, if there are any, to make sure that we have no big drops running down. It would really ruin everything here on the last few brush strokes, so to speak. I think it looks pretty. What do you think?
I love it.
Yeah?
Yeah, it looks very pretty.
It's good. Once it dries, that should do it for us. So we'll keep heading on, and I think next we do the cockpit combing, because the cockpit combing only had the primer coat, so we have to run at least 2 or 3 extra coats to reach a satisfactory finish here. But you know what, that is perfectly fine, because as far as I'm concerned, that is kind of the boat work that I like doing, when you see proper progress. I don't like sanding too much, that's always painful. But once we come to this part here, life is good. I think one good alternative to Sikaflex is bouture tape. It's less of a mess, and you can form it once it warms up between your fingers and put it between things that you want to seal off. Let's say like these screws here, have to pull that back up. Put some bouture tape under around the screw holes. So I just made 2 little donut seals here. I think it's way less of a mess than Sikaflex, for instance, which is always lots of fun applying and cleaning it off and so forth and so on. So this here is a little bit easier to apply and cleaner. That's why I like it. So as you can see now, the bouture tape squeezes out here at the corner. You can basically peel it off. Just grab a part of it. There's still also some silicone. It would have been probably a good idea to get rid of that first. But anyhow, with a little bit of bouture, it catches, and you can roll that little bouture ball around here and clean off the rest of it. And there you have it, a really nice and clean job. That's it. And now you just go and scrape it off, or you can also leave it on if you want. It really doesn't matter, but I want to see the screws, so I peel it off here, the rest. A little deeper in. This should do it. Yeah, that formed a really good seal. So I don't think that there will be any water penetrating this. Hopefully not. So we got most of the Brightwork done now with at least 3 coats. Everything more, I mean you could do 4 or 5 I guess. It looks already pretty sweet. The cockpit combing turned out really nice. And the boards for the companionway entrance also. And the handles and handrails and everything. Also the Dodger combing came back really nice. Yeah, so I'm very pleased with the outcome so far. That's what I was going for. Definitely well worth the effort. We have to rebuild the hatch still, so that's why that isn't even sanded down yet. But here's you can see the Dodger combing and the handrails. They also came back really nice. Yeah, and the forward hatch is absolutely stunning, I think. That's really beautiful.
Next time on Sailing Good Old Boats. New episodes every Wednesday. So, see you next Wednesday.